I'm very honored to have Dr. Alan Christianson tonight with us to talk about one of amazing program that everybody should know, especially any of you who are interested in staying healthy and at a healthy weight. I guess that would cover the whole population, right? Who wouldn't want to do that? But anyway, Dr. Alan Christianson, first of all, is a dear friend of mine, but most other than that, he's a New York Times best-selling author and one of the world's most recognized and sought out naturopathic physicians. One of his specialties is the health of our metabolism. And he's been doing some amazing research. He does love research, and I know for a fact. And he also loves to inspire and create natural health, which I share this passion with him. So, and the other thing that it's one of his biggest things that I also love is that he believes strongly that our health is in our hands. And he's written about it, but he also lives his life like that. He's one of those that I can really respect because he walks and lives the talk. So he's not somebody who's just going to tell you something that he's researched or written about and never does it. He really lives like that, and I've seen him. And
we were in the gym together. Very honored.
Yeah, so today he's going to be talking to us about his newest thing, the Metabolism Reset, and he's doing a very, very cool challenge and coming up with a good book that we'll talk about. But Alan, I wanted to talk, first of all, I would love to know about your health journey, because I think it's fascinating and people should hear. I mean, everybody may see you as like, oh, successful doctor, very healthy and good looking and married to a wonderful, most beautiful wife, but you went through a lot, and I would like to see what you want to share with the audience.
You know, thank you for that. I learned some lessons early along in life that taught me that your health is just essential to any kind of happiness or enjoyment of life, and that, you know, we can't take it for granted, and it's not always straightforward to get it back online again. I had cerebral palsy and seizures as a child, and a lot of complications from that. And it was funny because I couldn't really move or function or be athletic, and it was frustrating. But the thing that really got to me was when I was an adolescent and I was really heavy, and I was called out for that. And that was the thing that really cut me the deepest and inspired me to want to learn more about how to change things and how to make it happen. Yeah. And it wasn't straightforward. I read books and I tried things, and it was tough, and some things worked and some didn't. But over time and persistence, I learned that if we get in the right circumstances, our bodies can have this amazing capacity for recovery.
Yeah, and so was there any one particular thing that you did, and how old were you? Because you said you had excess weight. How heavy did you ever get?
You know, there was a point at where I was 190, and now I'm just about 6 feet. I was probably about 5'5", and I was a kid.
Okay.
So it was significant. I was very, very heavy. And, you know, things I did, I tried to exercise and I couldn't. I tried to play sports, and one time I tried to just like join the football team, and I blacked out on the way to practice. That's how bad my shape was.
Oh my God.
Like the coach had us go run across the field to go to practice. Yeah, I blacked out on my way there. So I started doing protein shakes on a regular basis. My parents had some. And I started just running around our kitchen. I would do like 3-4 laps around the kitchen, the little kitchen island, and that was about it. And I gradually built upon that. I cut out processed sugar and, you know, ended up stopping bread early along, and just those few changes, and then time and persistence and building upon it. And yeah, I saw a big shift come from it.
Well, that's amazing. I'm sure you're going to tell us a lot more about some of the things that you've discovered, you know, over your journey personally and also professionally as one of the most recognized doctors. So why did you decide to, you've written other best-selling books. You're about to to launch another one. I'm very confident it's gonna be, and I can't wait to share it with the world. But why did you decide to write this new book, and tell us a little about it?
I'm pretty excited about this one. I worked hard to sort out a lot of hormone problems, thyroid disease, adrenal disorders especially. And what I've learned was that there's so many people that struggle with their weight or their energy or some mixture of those two. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of cases, when they got healthy adrenal function or better thyroid levels, it would clear up. But for some, it wouldn't. And for some people, their thyroid or their adrenals weren't the problem. So I wanted to find some better answer for those real pressing problems.
Yeah, so would this be I do see that energy is one of the biggest problems, and then weight, I think this weight loss resistance that, people don't talk about it like that, but they just say, I can't lose weight no matter what I do, right? And so I understand that this new book is focused on that. Like, who is exactly would you say this book is for? I mean, everybody should have a healthy liver, but is there any particular type of people that definitely cannot afford to not get this book?
An easy way to think about that is that if your energy is not stable, if you miss a meal or two, or if your weight and your appetite don't sync up, if you're eating foods that are mostly good and intuitive, but your weight doesn't go back to where it should be, then these are signs that this is really made for you.
Okay. So anybody who's doing the right thing, they're staying active, eating adequate things, but not seeing any result. And you talk about something that I find that very interesting. You say that the real threat is the waste, not the weight. And I think you also have mentioned something that has caught my attention. Like you say that dieting leads to waist gain. I mean, can you explain us that? And that's really interesting. It's counterintuitive. Like, I'm going to diet and I'm going to get a bigger waist. Oh my God, I'm not going to diet anymore.
We throw the term weight around as the big goal, but when we think about it, that's really not it. Yeah, the waist is more relevant in terms of just how you look and how you can move. But we see this medically too. Weight is not the perfect predictor of health outcomes. But boy, honestly, there may be no stronger predictor of lifespan or disease risk or brain function than just waist size. And many people, when they diet, what's happening is that they may lose a lot of weight, but they're losing a lot of muscle mass. Mm-hmm. And the drawback is then their metabolism becomes compromised, and they're set up to hold on to whatever there is around the waist and grow even more afterward.
Really? And so then they do this diet, they probably reduce their waist a little, but you say right after they stop whatever they're doing, their waist is going to expand?
People often see that. Some will say that they don't see their waist change as they lose weight, not much or very minimal. And then others they see it come down, they often do see it come back again right afterward.
So that's one of the key things we all should be measuring if there's any changes in waist, and if not, look into something like what you're doing, and otherwise there's probably more danger, because I understand everything that's around our belly, it's like one of the most dangerous fats, right?
Exactly.
And so what is you also have brought up this new concept that it's fascinating too, which is metabolic flexibility, which I think that most of us probably don't have and should have, because it will make our life simpler. How did you come up with this, and what is it? Can you tell us for the normal world, what is it?
For sure. When it works right, your metabolism gives you a lot of leeway. We never get precisely how much food we need in a given day. And so a good metabolism can just soak up the extra and not have it correlate with weight gain. And so the times where you get less food than you need, you shouldn't have to feel exhausted and have bad food cravings. Your body can release spare energy to keep you energized and alert and active and moving. And you should be able to have your food fluctuate, but your weight and your energy stay steady. And that's a beautiful thing about getting a flexible metabolism back again.
And are there any markers or numbers or ways that you would know? How would one know, okay, I'm flexible on my metabolism, or I'm not?
One of the most objective ways is the height to waist ratio. And the numbers, it's really easy math. You want your waist circumference to be at least a good amount less than half of your height. So half of the height and above is clearly a risk. And a simple sample math, if the gal's 5 feet tall, that's what, like 60 inches. So half of that, so 30. So she'd want the inches around her belly button to be somewhere under 30. And a little leeway is nice. You wouldn't want to be right up against that, but over that is clearly a risk factor.
So we should all today, whatever time zone you're in, we should all go measure, we know how high we are, and then we should go measure our waist. And like he said, if it's more than half of our height, then we definitely need to do something about it. One potential way is to take a look at this amazing program he has that he's going to tell us more about. But yeah, that's really cool to know. And how much for that metabolic flexibility, is there like a time? How do you know is it like, because I know you say like if you get really hungry really fast, then you definitely are not. And so is there any like number of hours or time that you should be able to be okay without eating?
For sure, 3-4 hours is an easy time frame. And of course, there's circumstances to where if someone has just done huge amounts of activity, that can be different. But yeah, general on a rest easy day, you should have 3 to 4 hours before you need to eat again to stay stable.
Okay. And then if you, for example, if you don't eat for longer than that, how does the weight gain and all that come into play, like in an example?
Yeah, so what's happening is that the liver has stored fuel, and most of that is in the form of triglycerides. Some is in a thing called glycogen. And when you're healthy, your body can just tap into that and utilize that to give you energy. But when the liver is toxic and there's trapped fat that can't get out, well, that fat is part of that waste size. But it's almost like being trapped at sea where you can't drink seawater. There's all this water, but you can't drink it. And that's what's happening when the liver's getting toxic. There's all this energy, but you just can't get to it. And it's creating this extra weight and blocking things and creating illness.
Yeah, no, the liver it should be one of our most precious assets. And talking about the liver, you say that your liver can definitely block fat loss. And tell us a little about that, because a lot of people should know about that. They normally talk about, restricting calories or exercising more, but nobody thinks about it. If you really want to lose fat, you got to look into your liver.
It's almost like you got to make a big camp or make one big fire outside, right? So if you ever try just taking and burning a log, it won't work. You've got to have some kindling, and that could be, some liquid, some gasoline or some small paper, whatever. You need something that burns easily. And the liver has some things called some glycogen, and then the triglycerides. The triglycerides are like the big log that burns slow, and the glycogen is like the triglycerides. And what happens to a lot of us in the modern world is that we get too much logs and not enough kindling. There's too much of this one, and you can't burn that properly. So glycogen, healthy amounts of glycogen, that's the key for the liver being able to burn fat again effectively, is getting the glycogen levels back up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you also, you mentioned that people that have, that's one of your specialties, but people that have thyroid disease, you say they're more probably susceptible to have liver problems. Is that true?
It's very true, and it works both ways. The thyroid controls the liver, and the liver affects the thyroid. So if there's too little thyroid hormone, the bile coming through the liver becomes too thick and too sludgy. And then the body can't use thyroid hormones effectively. So it can easily become a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you have to tackle first? You have to do both at the same time when you work with people like that, or do you work first with the thyroid or first with the liver? What do you recommend?
If someone's not aware of having obvious thyroid disease and they're not on treatment per se, then the liver is a great starting place. Mm-hmm. If someone is on thyroid treatment, it's still wonderful to address the liver. And in fact, when someone does, they may need less thyroid treatment. So it's good to check again afterward.
Oh, that's good. And then you think you really can get a liver healthy in a short period of time? Like how long would it take? Like let's say your liver is, you have all these issues. Let's assume that it's the liver. Will it take like a long time, or is something you can do relatively short term?
There's this, I've been alluding to various types of fat and congestion. There's severe versions of that called fatty liver syndrome. And
Mhm.
most, even with that disease state, can be completely reversed within about 4 weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah. And people that have milder liver issues like we've been describing, it rarely takes more than a week to see some clear symptoms of that improving and changing.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what about like the fact that you say we shouldn't be talking about calories, which I hate the word calories, and you should be talking about fuel. How are you managing this in your programs?
Yeah, so great question. So the thought is that during this window of time, we want the body to get rid of these waste and toxins. And you think, well, just fast. But the problem is your liver is working harder than ever. So we've got to feed the liver, but not feed the fat. That's the trick. And
Okay.
so we lower the fuel intake by a low but healthy amount of some good fats and good carbs, but limited amounts of each. And then we
Mhm.
provide good, healthy, clean, alkalized protein to support the liver and some nutrients that it needs to carry on its main phase 1, phase 2 reactions.
So I guess we've sort of like started touching into the whole diet thing in different ways. Because I just had all these questions that you brought up that I thought would be of interest to the audience. But do you want to tell us or whatever we've not covered about your program? Because I know people may have questions as to number one, why is it different? I know it is something that will work because it's focused on the liver. But if you want to tell more about it, and then how can people, what is the process? Is it through your book? Is it through the challenge? What can we do if we're interested in what you are saying, or we have any of those issues?
Maru, for your audience, I wanted them to be able to just try things out. And
Yeah.
so I made a free version of that they can do for 7 days. And the
Okay.
full program is 28 days, but I wanted them just to be able to test the waters that first week. And if they feel like, hey, this is great, this has been helpful, they're welcome to then join and do the rest. But like no risk, they can see if it makes a difference and if it makes sense for them. And the book will talk through a lot about how it works and also talk about how to do the program. But we're going to do it live as a group and they can participate in that format as well.
So is this something you're going to do repetitively, just once, or how can people join? Because you say it's live and it's a short period of time, right?
Yep. So they can jump in between now and Thursday the 24th, and they can come
Okay.
on in and join with us. So there's a little window of time still. And the
Okay.
live thing is fun because there'll be, right now we've got about 20,000 that are in it. So it'll be super active and a great community. And I'll be doing some live Q&A events inside of it as well and interacting frequently. So it's a great time.
Okay, and how long is this? Can you tell us a little about like this short version of your program? What would people be doing and how long will they be doing and how hard is it?
For sure. So the trial portion, the 7-day trial is a week, and they can test it out in that time frame. And the basic idea is that in giving the liver nutrients, but not the rest, I structured around 2 easy shakes.
Okay.
And you can do simple ingredients. You can get anywhere. You can do it if you're paleo, autoimmune paleo. If you're vegan, it'll work in all those scenarios. So you
Mm-hmm.
do 2 shakes and then 1 meal. And same thing, the meal fits all those guidelines too. And I've got to say, we've pulled together some really cool recipes for the shakes and for the meals. So it's good food, and it's meant to be simple. You can even just mix up 1 giant blend of 2 shakes first thing in the morning, like a double batch,
Yeah.
and you're done cooking for the bulk of the day.
Yeah, I love that. And so, is there any particular brand they have to use, or any particular what are the requirements for the shake?
Yeah, no special brand. I give a lot of guidelines in terms of what to look for. There's many types of protein base one can use and many parameters. So people have got options.
Oh, that's great. So I'm gonna be as long as I guess. Do you have any what are the nodes in the shake? I mean, I have certain obviously parameters we
Of
use.
course, you want to avoid processed sugars and synthetic items and GMOs and weird stuff, and you want some high quality, well absorbed protein.
Do you have any? Do you do any plant based or it's animal? Do you use dairy, gluten?
By default, I suggest plant based shakes. When
Uh-huh.
there's real rapid weight loss, they have an advantage in that they're more alkalizing.
Oh.
And with rapid weight loss, some have more of an acidic burden on their bodies, and that can be a factor for gallstones or gout attacks. So having more alkaline compounds like vegetable proteins can be better during that time.
And do you keep dairy in the diet and gluten in the diet? Is that something you...
No.
That's good.
No. Cut out all those reactive foods during this process too, for sure. Yeah, people do better that way.
Yeah, so definitely we'll be posting some recommendations for that. And how does this type of diet, so let's say we do the challenge, so we still have a short period of time. You say it's like 7 days, right? But there's only like 4 days. So what would happen to people that join now?
So if they're joining now, they'll get the 7 days. They'll have it timed out, so they'll still get the full 7 days.
Okay, that'll be great. And then after that, what can they do next? So I guess they'll know once they're in if it works. What would be some measure of knowing that it worked and I should go ahead and test the next 3 weeks?
Better energy, more stable mental function, just less inflammation and swelling, and then seeing some shrinkage of the waist. People often see an inch or two even in that first week.
Wow, I'm sure everybody can take that. And is there anything that, how would you differentiate like this type of diet? Let's say we're assuming we got a little taste, which is you're so generous always, so that's so great. And then they can decide if it works for them. But most of these people, everybody's doing all these type of diets. I'm sure there are some people that are we already talked about how this is not a calorie restricting diet, right? Which I like because it is managing the adequate fuel, but it's not restricting and starving. In fact, you say you have some great ideas on how to do these things. But what is it different versus like some of them other very like popular things out there, like intermittent fasting or the ketogenic diet? You did say it's like paleo-based, so there's no difference. It can be sort of like paleo inspired type of diet, right?
For sure, someone who's paleo can do it. So yeah, it's not meant to restrict food in certain time frames, and it's not meant to create a high level of ketones. It's really meant to just help the liver clear out that toxic fat and start functioning again properly.
So are people on a ketogenic diet, can they do this? Are they going to be off or?
It's not a ketogenic diet, no. So to be really precise, there's metabolic ketosis and there's ketogenic. So metabolic ketosis is what happens whenever the level of fuel is below the daily needs, the body forms some ketones. Ketogenic is what happens when there's a high intake of food, but there's a very low intake of protein and carbohydrate. In that case, the body actually can't burn ketones. It forms more ketones than it's burning. And the liver is the only organ that can't burn ketones for fuel. So in terms of helping the liver, I wanted to support it more effectively.
Okay. So you feel like, do you feel like that for those people that are so, how do you say, married to this ketogenic diet, is that something that you are recommending to your patients or that you do for yourself?
I just had a long discussion with a dear friend about this, and I put a lot of weight on evidence, and so far we have very little evidence on how ketogenic diet affects thyroid disease. Mm-hmm. The evidence we have is pretty harmful. There's 2 studies that have been published, and they're both about pediatric populations that are put on ketogenic diets. And mm-hmm. kids don't really get thyroid disease much. It's quite rare in pediatric populations. But when they're on ketogenic diets, it becomes quite common. Like as many as 20% of kids at some centers need thyroid medications because the ketogenic diet hurt their thyroid so much.
Oh my God, yeah, that's
why it's not the first treatment they give for kids with epilepsy.
Yeah, that's so dangerous. The things we do to try to lose weight, that affected me severely, in my teens and early 20s, where now I'm paying the price. So
oh, wow.
People like you are showing us how to get the results safely and how to, get results for the long term. Because one of the things that I've heard you say is that, like certain diets are just, they may give you a very short result, but they're just very damaging, as you well mentioned.
Yeah.
And there's another thing that we haven't really mentioned, but it's interesting for people to know the difference between being overweight. We all know, right? It's a weight above what's recommended as a healthy weight for your height. But what is being, what's the difference between being overweight and overfat? Is everybody who's overweight overfat, and everybody who's overfat overweight, or no?
That's a great question. And I don't like the term overfat at all. Fat's like a derogatory word nowadays, but that's what they call this in medical research. So
Okay.
yeah, so some people are just heavier than they want to be, and they're carrying too much weight total. But there's many people to where their scale weight is good, but they've lost so much muscle mass that they're still carrying too much body fat for their size. And so researchers call those who are overweight plus those who are obese and plus those who are normal weight but too much fat, they lump all that together as overfat. And what we see is that some people can be heavy but not fat, like if they've got a lot of muscle mass.
Okay.
But those who are overfat, they have all the risks of early death and brain aging and heart disease. And it doesn't even matter if their weight is okay. So it's a huge, huge thing. And it's probably about 80 to 90% of the population now.
Are there skinny? So there's skinny people that, I mean, or like thin people that they look okay to the eye, but they may be carrying a lot of fat internally.
Yep, that happens.
Because I do feel that's one of the most dangerous, because they're so confident. I see people like eating, stuffing themselves or eating really bad stuff, but for some reason their metabolism is not making them gain weight, but I'm sure it's accumulating fat, and over time that's gonna impact their health and well-being big time, right?
Yep, exactly.
A skinny fat, how would they know if they're, a skinny person, how would they know if they are, what measure do you use to determine whether they are over fat or they're like healthy?
Sometimes the height to waist can work, but in other cases, then body fat measurements. And some are as simple as they're called bioimpedance, like scales that measure your body fat by a current. You can measure that with calipers. But anytime that there's just tissues very, very soft, that can be suspected. And if someone's prone to easy muscle strains or injuries, or they're not able to be active and enjoy it, those are suspicious signs of it as well.
Oh, wow. And what would be the percentage of body fat that you would consider above, the healthy level?
Women are very healthy carrying more fat than men are.
Yes.
And you see different numbers, but somewhere around 25% women can be quite healthy there, or slightly below. And then it's probably more like about 15%. They'd be good to be just under.
Okay. So you say between 15 and 25, that's a healthy fat level for women. Mm-hmm. How about for men?
Men can do well between about like 10 to 17.
Okay. So anything about 17 would be considered unhealthy for a man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good to know, because I do find it very challenging with people that don't have the weight issue to convince them that they shouldn't be eating like they're eating. You're going to pay the price too.
Right.
So, okay, so they've done, we've talked about the critical parts. We talked about the opportunity to join your challenge, which is a 7-day, and then probably test, if you get results, get the test. How does the book come in, and tell us, when is the book coming? I'm just really excited about it, and how do we use it? Now you have 3 things: the free gift, the program, and the book. Tell us how we can use all this resources.
Yeah, great question. They all work well together. The book is the best way to go deep in the science and have more recipe options and learn more about how it came together. It's also wonderful advice for the maintenance process afterward. And the challenge, that's the best way to just see if this is for you or not, if this is going to be a helpful thing. And then if it is, then join in for that remaining. So it's a 28-day program and a free first 7 days. So then 21 more days afterward.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, that's great. Is there anything that you think I should be sharing with the audience? I try to cover like what's, obviously very, I find going to be very useful, and also some of the things that are very intriguing if we don't know your work. But is there anything that I should be covering, that, because I want to help people. I think what you're doing is great. So I just want them to, get any more information to make up their minds if this is for them.
The message that I'd love people to come away with is that you might have tried a lot of diets and thought that you failed them, but they failed you. It's not a matter of needing to starve or try harder. Your body really can work right. And we've had lots of great stories of people to where, one woman who was in our clinical trial on this, she said, hey, Dr. C, I think I shouldn't be in the trial because I might give you bad numbers. I'm going to be on a cruise. And I said, okay, well, look, I want you to stay in it because I think that you might find it easier than you suspect and you could still do well. And she actually lost over 5 inches on her waist in 28 days as she was on a cruise. So this kind of stuff is possible. And the other exciting thing I see is that, the inches are great for feeling good and for lowering the risk, but there's so many ways they contribute to inflammation right now. So we've heard people talk about how their arthritis is cleared up, or their chronic Epstein-Barr virus, or their autoimmune reactions have lessened. So we're super jazzed about that. And I just want people to know that your body can heal itself, and so many symptoms come back to this. So you're really worth it, and don't ever give up on your health.
That's amazing. And I think two last questions that came up to me as I heard you saying, one is, during these 28 days or the 7 days, are people allowed to drink, and if so, how much? Or you have to give up, wine or whatever people drink. Obviously, no beer because beer is gluten. But anyway, do you allow wine in this program?
Yeah, during the trial, the participants, we had them stop alcohol towards the interest of letting the liver rest and heal. So we do encourage. It works well with that consideration also. Yeah, alcohol and caffeine are things that for many people, they're harmless to have some here and there. And there may even be benefits to coffee and tea for many people. But towards letting the liver really heal itself, it's easier to have those out during that reset process.
The 28 days?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you've also touched on something people should know. You came out with this program after doing, you've done it on a lot of people. And so you have some numbers of how successful. Do you want to share any of those? Because those are very fascinating.
For sure. We see blood sugar come down by, there's 2 ways to measure blood sugar that are common. There's one called the A1C, and that's how much percent glucose is stuck in your blood cells. So a diabetic is 7, a normal healthy person's 5. It's like that small of a difference. And we see an average about 1.5 point drop over the course of the time frame. Wow. And pounds, averages about 9 pounds of fat loss specifically. And averages just under 3 inches of waist loss. So pretty dramatic numbers. Blood pressure, resting heart rate, cholesterol, triglycerides. These are all things that we see come down pretty dramatically also.
And by the way, you have mentioned to me that during these, you actually don't recommend exercising during the 28 days. Why? How much or nothing, and why is that?
Yeah, very little. And this is a process that's meant to really elicit a change. So I want your liver to be able to rest and put more energy into healing.
Okay.
Your liver also works out, and exercise is the best thing in the world for healthy, long life and, good brain function and maintaining your weight. But during this reset process, we do some things that are not what we would do every day for a specific goal, and that's one of them. So we actually talk about guidelines about how much walking is appropriate and stretching. And then in the 28-day program, we also talk about some micro workouts, which are just a couple of minutes to keep your muscles engaged and healthy throughout the process. So
for all of those of you who are not in love with exercising, this is like you got the doctor's orders to not exercise. But that'll be, so what are some of the last things you want to close this, and then maybe also share with us, what is one of your favorites healthy routines during the day? What's like one of the things that you think has the most impact on your life?
For me, people can be different, but for me, it's really just moving outside, being outdoors and interacting with nature in some way. I grew up in rural northern Minnesota, and it was in the woods, and that was just kind of where I found my solace and my peace. And so still, there's now talk about nature immersion and forest bathing and things like that. There's a lot of research saying that it's powerful for us and very healing for us. So I love being in natural settings.
That's great. So how do you want to say goodbye to the audience? And by the way, from the audience and me particularly, wish you the best of luck with this. I know this is going to be a very successful. You guys will be hearing about him a lot, because this is going to make it big. So how would you like to say goodbye to us?
just to let you all know that your health is something that your body thrives and strives toward all the time. And once it gets the right circumstances, it can be there. And when you're back to that, you can do such a better job with being there for your loved ones and connecting with them and really just rocking out your mission, your purpose in life. It all comes back in line again when you're feeling good. And that's why I really did this, because that's what I want for you.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And again, we wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to keep spreading the word so more people benefit from it.
I sure appreciate that. And happy to have some time with you, Maru.
Thank you.